Hello and welcome to moneypuzzle.in. I'm Lisa, and in this episode of Expert Bites, we've got somebody very special who has actually disrupted the way equity investments happen through different products and options. And if you haven't heard of Small Case already, then you're behind the curve and you really have some catching up to do. Please welcome Vasant Kamath, who is the founder and CEO of Small Case, who's joining us today, and he's going to share his views on equity and also what Small Case is all about. Hi, Vasant.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Thanks so much for having me on your platform. Feels great to be here.
Thanks, and thanks so much for coming. And I still recall when we had met a few years ago, and when you were just starting out, and it was an exciting concept then, and it is even more exciting now, and it's come a long way, grown a lot as well. And like I was saying earlier, it is kind of, at least in the Indian context, we didn't have anything like a small case before, and now we have this new option as investors to get into equity in a completely different manner than what was available earlier. There were mutual funds earlier, you could go directly, or you could be a high net worth individual who had access to these customized portfolios. But small case changed that and got a little bit of that little bit, more customization to the retail investor as well. What was your thought process when you were setting it up? And, in the initial days, what were you hoping to achieve through this?
No, absolutely. I think, the seed for this idea came from what one of my co-founders used to do in his previous experience. He was at a global bank. He was working in the Bombay office there. And for his clients, both institutional as well as high net worth individuals, they used to basically design portfolios according to certain strategies, objectives, themes, ideas, etc. And I think that's what kind of was the seed for the small case concept and eventually the platform as well. That there's either they could build their own portfolio with stocks where they have to pick their own stocks and kind of build their portfolio, or they could invest in a mutual fund where they're investing in a portfolio of stocks, obviously managed by a fund manager. And we felt, these were two very extreme options where one, you are kind of giving control to a fund manager to decide where to invest in. On the other hand, you are completely, given the responsibility of building that portfolio, doing your research and understanding the stocks of the companies before you pick them as part of it. And this kind of wrapper or formats are not just in the stocks world. For example, earlier if you had to listen to music, one way would be that you actually buy an album or a CD which is of a particular artist, of a particular album. Maybe you might want to listen to two songs out of that, but you have to buy the entire CD. Then came, say, a concept of iTunes where you could go and buy individual stocks and then build your library. And today, the most prevalent way of kind of consuming music is through playlists or via streaming, where you have ready-made playlists. You can then add your own into it, or you can create your own playlists and then listen to that as well. So I think that was, the starting point for something like this. What we realized when, we saw what my co-founder was doing there was, why doesn't retail have this option? We tried to do was build it on the broking layer, work with brokerage partners to kind of build an experience where all of these steps, be it investing, be it say tracking, be it say setting up an SIP on it, or investing more, updating your this basket, or say exiting partially or exiting completely, could be made a one click process versus say having to do multiple clicks, move between different platforms, etc.
From what I saw on your platform, people can invest in really small amounts as well. So you can buy a small case for even under 1,000. I think you can invest even under 1,000, if I'm not mistaken, or at least there are a lot of portfolios in the 3,000 to 5,000 kind of range. But I can do all this as a retail investor. I can do this with mutual funds as well, right? And as if I'm an HNI, I can have these kind of options through. Now there are AIFs and PMS schemes as well. So what sets you apart in a sense?
No, sure. I think that's what, like I mentioned earlier, like small cases are another wrapper or another form factor of investing into equities like say mutual funds, ETFs, PMSs, AIFs. The biggest difference between say how a small case operates with the other products is that it's not a pool structure, which is where say you as an investor when you buy a small case, the underlying stocks are held in your demat account and you own them. So you're not really a unit holder here, you're a shareholder over here, which basically, that means that it's transparent by design. You know what you're investing into. And second, there is the possibility of customization. For example, say you're looking to invest in a sectoral mutual fund, for example, but you don't like a stock. You can't really call up the fund manager and say, I don't like exposure to the stock, remove it for me, because it's a one size fits all product. And uh, by like, I'm not saying that that's not the best way to do it. That's a great way for many people to start out their investing behavior, but as you get more savvier, you want to start exercising your own views and opinions about what you're investing in. Customizability or the optionality of control becomes more important. So these are the two things from a retail investor's perspective, and this structure or the concept itself, it leads to a lot more unique exposure. For example, say there are small cases around corporate governance or companies which have strong promoters, very focused ideas, for example, like platform oriented business models. Those that could be a small case. Like we have a small case which has ETFs that give you exposure to equity and gold, not just say equity and debt or equity, debt and gold, but equity and gold. So this leads to unique exposures that you might not find in other formats. For the investor who's looking to basically invest into stocks, this provides a diversified, more transparent, as well as a more customizable way for them to build their portfolio.
So this is the other thing, right? As you were mentioning, there are a lot of different types of themes and small cases out there. And I was going through your site and the sheer number pops out. So is it like, do you think there's too much to choose now?
So like I remember when we spoke, Lisa, that time there were, I think, around 30, 35 small cases. At that time, again, these were all thematic in nature. So they were all based on, say, ideas, trends, long-term shifts happening in different sectors or different spaces. Today, obviously, that number of professionally managed small cases would be north of 300. It's not just increase in the menu, but also a diversification of the menu itself, that it's not just thematics now. We have asset allocation oriented small cases. We have, say, factor based smart beta small cases. We have small cases based on models, based on quantitative, based on thematics, based on sectors, based on segments of markets, like focused ideas, like I mentioned, like API intermediaries has a small case, or say electric vehicles, or say platform oriented business models. So I think it's not just an increase in the number of small cases that's there, but also in the kind of small cases or the types of small cases that have been there. I think it's a fair point that if somebody is coming to the smallcase.com or the platform, they will have a lot of small cases to choose from. But that's true for any product classes, such as in say if you look at mutual funds, you would have mutual fund schemes in the order of thousands. PMSs, there are 320, 350 plus PMSs already in the country, a lot of hedge funds, etc. I think what kind of you have to look at when you come to smallcase.com is not to kind of is not going to be a curated set ever, because this is where all the products are going to be listed. So it's not really a conceptual challenge or a structural challenge. Really, it's more of a product challenge, or which platform are you discovering it on. So say if you are a client of our partner broker, you will not see all the 300 small cases, because the research team at that brokerage firm has curated the set of small cases that should be visible to you at any given moment, and they keep reviewing that list and keep changing it. Similarly, today we are working with, say, more digital wealth platforms, more advisory platforms, who again then take on the call of deciding what shortlist or what curation should their customer set see. Source or where you come from should ideally determine what small cases is right for the segment. They could basically filter it out by taking you through a questionnaire, taking you through a flow or a wizard, so that you see a more shorter list of small cases. But I think again, like the again, taking the same music analogy, the number of songs in the world is just going to grow. So how, what you listen to today can be suggested by your friends, can be suggested by an algorithm, so can be suggested by a expert curator or someone who has great taste in music, and that's what you would listen to versus trying to listen to everything, or basically trying and choosing between the entire catalog what to listen to. So it's more of a product or a channel challenge versus say a conceptual or a structural challenge in itself.
Okay, so thankfully the music, listening to music is something that's soothing, and there's no risks or downside to it. So, but as opposed to when it comes to portfolios, but would you then say that this is not something that maybe a novice equity investor should sort of, if they were to chance upon a small case, would you think that this is suitable for them to sort of filter through so much of what is already available on your platform? Or is it for somebody who has that little bit of experience and one layer of understanding of equity markets, and then they should kind of look at it?
I think it is what you mentioned in the last point. By design, again, today, the addressable audience for small cases are people who have a demat account, and usually people look to have a demat account once they have dipped their toes into the equity markets, understand the nuances a little bit, have already invested in mutual funds, and now they want to kind of go direct. Either they have their own stock selection that they want to invest into, or they want to follow a certain strategy which can be possible with direct equity only. So by design, I think that is getting kind of sorted. It's like if somebody today is looking to invest for the first time into equities and they're choosing a demat account, that means they either have the interest or the motivation or the capability to invest into direct equities. And that's where kind of our playground also lies today, that if you have a demat account, it means that you're looking to say invest into direct equity or stocks, and this gives you a more systematic or a more structured, professionally managed way to kind of invest versus saying picking your own portfolio. You can also create your own small case and then invest in it.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about equity as an asset class, because while we talk about it as a long-term growth wealth creator kind of asset, there are a lot of nuances which don't get understood as well. So you're offering primarily this asset class, so let's pick your brains a little bit around this.
Sure.
Is in your view, firstly, is there a minimum age that one has, or have you seen in your platform when people are transacting, what is the time for starting your equity investing journey, in a sense? In your experience, what have you seen, and what do you think it could be or it should be?
Sure. No, so I think again, I'm answering this from first principles, as in, as soon as someone gets their first cash flows, be it their first salary or some other way of incoming cash flows, saving should be a part of that. And then saving eventually leads to asset allocation, of which equity is a part. So technically, say at the age of anywhere when you're starting your first job and you get your first salary, usually that's between the age of 18 to 21, 22, which is where somebody should start investing into equity. Again, the general rule of thumb goes there that 100 minus your age should be invested into equity, so that reduces over time, and as you reach a retirement age, for example, then you start over allocating to debt or fixed income instruments. So I think I that's what's been happening in specifically India over the last few years. Not just because financial literacy or awareness is growing, but also it's becoming a lot of a cultural phenomenon right now for people to start investing into equities. Literacy is growing, more people are doing it, access has become easier. The internet has become a level playing field for anybody to actually go and like you mentioned at the start of this, like everybody can access multiple products on an app now versus having to have someone coming to them or going to a branch or going to the bank to access these products. So I think all of those have actually added. And the more interesting part that we've been noticing is that it's becoming more of a cultural phenomenon over the last few years to start investing into equities. And it just makes sense, right? So if you are getting your first cash flows in, if saving has to be a part of that, and by asset allocation, equity should be a large part of your savings, especially when you're young. So the ideal age to start investing would be when you start getting your first salary.
Earlier the better is what I hear you.
Yes, absolutely.
So yes, that's right, because the access is there, and now there is no longer an excuse. I think, I will always say this, that when I started working, the way to invest was still to fill forms and things like that. But now there is no excuse really. It's so simple to do it, and you can even do it in very small amounts. Very small absolute amounts. You don't need to have like a large capital to start, etc. So anybody who's young, who's earning, or who has access to sort of free cash flow needs to sort of go out there and explore all these different options that are available for equity investing. The difficulty really comes from what I have experienced in explaining equity, because there is this tendency of expecting too much too soon, and one gets caught up in the volatility. Now, we always say equity is a great investment for long term, but now there are so many other assets which are there, and again, just like in equity, people have access to all these other assets as well at the
Very
click
true.
of a button. But we say that, okay, no, equity is the real long-term wealth creator, and you shouldn't dabble too much in, say, commodities or currencies or crypto now. How does one
Right.
initiate that? How does one, with great surety, sort of try and focus on equity for long-term wealth and not take it just as a trade?
So fair. So I think there are two nuances or dimensions to that question. One is about, say, investing versus trading, and the second is basically inside investing itself. How do you look at equity versus other asset classes, be it commodities, be it currencies, or say even cryptocurrencies right now. And I think investing versus trading is slightly more simple. Obviously, trading has a higher upside and a much higher downside as well, because it's a zero sum game at the end of it, right? Whereas investing is something that you are having an asset allocation around, and now that depends on how you kind of build your mix or design your asset allocation mix in that. I think all different asset classes obviously have different cycles, etc. But having a good mix of as many asset classes as you have will only kind of strengthen or fortify your portfolio here. But inside equity, again, taking a very first principles fundamental view to it, say for example, an asset class like real estate, or say commodity like gold, the reason for, say, why it should appreciate over the long term is that demand will continue increasing because there is a application to it. Supply is restricted. There's only so much land in this world. There's only so much gold that can be mined in this world. And now today, that same argument is being used to say a Bitcoin, which there's only so much Bitcoin that can be mined, and the demand for it will continue increasing, which is where the price should appreciate over time, and there should be returns that a yield or returns that will come from it. Whereas for equity, supply is not really the shortage. As in, the reason for equities, which is by definition, ownership into an enterprise or a company, be it public equity or private equity, there is value creation happening over there. It's not just that there is so many number of shares of a certain stock listed out there, which is where demand for that will increase as the company grows or the enterprise creates more value. There is more things that the company does, or creates jobs, creates more value, because of which your investment or the principal amount and returns come from it. So I think that's kind of why, say, equity as an asset class, again, be it listed equity, unlisted equity, but equity as an asset class should be a large percentage in anybody's portfolio, because there's actual value creation happening there, not because of supply demand, say,
you're actually buying a business and going concern and something that's building value. But if I want to use small case as a strategy to build my entire equity investment portfolio, then how do I diversify with the various small case options available? Do you see that happening, that somebody has, or what do you see, that how much, what is the minimum number of small case ownership that individuals end up having?
No, absolutely. I think great question, Lisa, because again, this was something that did not exist when we launched. Like I told you, we had, I think, 30 products at that time, 30 small cases, all of them thematic, which means high risk products. So kind of you couldn't, or we couldn't say, even position small cases as everything you need to basically build your entire equity portfolio. But that's no longer true today. A feature on the platform around that. So the entire feature is centered around this whole philosophy of core satellite investing, that you need to have a core, which is, say, a very low risk asset allocation strategy or a small case around which you build satellites. There are two types of satellites. One is a slow moving satellite, so lower risk, moderate risk ones, where you're taking equity exposure, but again, in the large cap category. And then there are, say, fast moving satellites, which are more in the thematics models, high beta, high risk kind of strategies, where there are more mid cap, small cap, exposures in that. But on small case, the platform tries to nudge you to have a diversified exposure with all small cases. So that's how we've designed it. So there's a core where you can invest in asset allocation, be it equity, debt, gold, equity, debt, and around, say, 40 to 50% of your portfolio should be there. Then there's slow moving satellites, which again is, say, 25, 30, 35%, depending on the investment amount that you've done, which could be low risk small cases like, say, a smart beta strategy, a large cap strategy, say dividend based large cap strategies, etc. And then the rest is basically where you take exposure to, say, high beta, high risk strategies, and actually try and generate more and more alpha with those. So that's kind of what we've tried to do. The minimum number of small cases it could take you to achieve this is 4.
In your view, in your experience of being involved in equity investing, what is the biggest risk that an investor faces at say at a starting level and even at an experienced level?
I think the biggest, like, I think everybody's aware about this, but the biggest thing I see is basically, the holding period, as in you cannot come into equity, or do, say, there are many people who ask us, for example, say, having uh, a goal-based investing option on equity. That's what we don't feel that it makes sense, because equity being an asset class which is cyclical, volatile, etc., and it's very dependent on the markets as well. So kind of you can't really have, say, that you can save up towards a holiday by investing in stocks for a year. So I think that's something that comes as an expectation with many new investors coming in. I don't think that's happening a lot of today. The incremental set of new investors coming in understand the vagaries, the risks, the volatility that they're exposed to, and are investing. But I think this has traditionally been something that people say, if I invest 3 years into this, how much do I get? Or, should I invest in this for 3 months or 6 months? I think holding period should continue to be long. And that's where, if you're planning for a purchase, or, planning for a milestone or a goal, that should be with your overall asset allocation versus just trying to do it with your equity mix.
When did you start investing in equity?
Like, I think my parents had started investing on my behalf earlier, but my first investing started when I got my first salary. Not in the first few months. Again, I think that was one of the not so right things. I think I started working in August, and my first investment started in January of the next year. So I was 22 at that point of time.
I would say you're still quite, I mean, you're among the few evolved people who start investing so early and are not really keen on, spending the entire paycheck. So that's a good thing. Maybe because of what you were saying, that your parents were investing on your behalf earlier. So you'd probably seen that experience of money growing. And once you see it, you become greedy for it, don't you? Like you want your money to grow more than you want to spend it.
No, absolutely. I think that's been, a good. I've been fortunate and privileged to kind of have that family background as well, because they've been investing, for a long period of time, especially in direct equity. Kind of parents got married by pledging, shares of a certain stock. So kind of, stocks used as a saving instrument from very early on. So I think that kind of came in very naturally. I think, kind of one of the mistakes that I did earlier was what you mentioned, which is I used to look at, say, and this was not just for the first 6-7 months, but I think for the first 2-3 years also, I used to look at saving as something, or investing as something that was done post your spending. So, like, say, if I'm getting a paycheck of 100 rupees, I spend 80, then the 20 would be invested. Whereas I think after 3 years, I kind of switched that. I started investing as soon as the paycheck came in, so that the rest rest is what I restrict my spending to. And if required, I can dip into my investing to actually spend if I have more, higher purchases to do. But then I think that's a big change that actually helped.
So thanks a lot, Vasant, and thanks for talking to us about small case and about what options there are for investors. I think there's so much more to look forward to as far as this option and product is concerned and the way it's evolving. So yeah, thanks so much for coming on today.
Absolutely, sir. Again, thanks so much for having me here. I think would love to come on more, talk about more topics, in the future as well. If any of your audience and viewers have any questions, feel free to reach me. I'm available on many social media sites.
We will do it for sure again. Thanks a lot, Vasant.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.